Yeah, she's got some nice long hair. And you know that
Welcome
she's a
back
bad-
to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron, and I hope you had a wonderful weekend. We had some football, or the Underwear Olympics, as some people call it, with the NFL Draft Combine. So today, we're going to be breaking down every single day, going through who are the risers, who are the fallers, and also kind of break it down from a Chicago Bears perspective. If you're not a Chicago Bears fan and you're listening to this, you still want to stay tuned because we are going through each day and who is actually going up draft boards and falling down draft boards as well. So make sure to follow the podcast at Unbearable Sports on Instagram, Twitter, and find us anywhere that you listen to podcasts, Apple, iHeart, whatever it might be. Just throw a follow and also make sure to rate 5 stars. It greatly helps us out. But we have a big show today. We have a lot of people to go through, a lot of good, a lot of bad, and some of the big headlines. But first, before we get into that, let's go through a lot of the different rumors and news that came out of the draft combine. This is obviously when all the owners or all the head coaches can kind of get together, and sometimes there's some trade chatter and other rumors that come out. The two biggest ones were really about Amari Cooper and Cole Beasley becoming basically trade pieces. Now people can trade for them. They are seeking trades. And where does this fall with the Chicago Bears? Honestly, I don't see us really actively wanting to go out there. I know that there's some rumors that we might be after Amari Cooper. I just don't think that it makes sense, especially with this $20 million cap hit. That's why I think that the Bears are probably going to play it safe and just wait for both of them to potentially be released if they wanted to go after either player. But then the next big piece of news is Devontae Adams is most likely going to be tagged. The tag deadline is the 8th, so maybe he's already been tagged when you're listening to this, maybe he's not. But most likely, according to Ian Rappaport, he will be tagged. Now, if he does get tagged, the Packers will then have a negative $48 million cap hit against them. So that's pretty bad. So I kind of hope that they do just because it's really going to screw them up for the future. So Devontae would be a 20 point, I think $2 million cap hit, but then in total, the Packers would be back down to negative 46. So we will see, but it doesn't seem like a lot of people are going to be tagged, which is really interesting. So the free agency is just going to be even crazier. So that does it for about news and rumors. Like I said, not a lot, which is great because we have a big group of people to be going through. Now, first day one of the NFL Combine. It's always, to me, this is the most important or the most flashy of all the days. And I don't know why they have it as the first day. I think it might just be to get the quarterbacks warmed up since they have to throw to everyone else. That's probably the biggest reason. But honestly, I kind of wish that it was more of a Saturday or Sunday because this is the day that the quarterbacks, the wide receivers, the tight ends come and they put on a show. But first, before we break down the risers and followers, I just want to say, can we as just a collective Bears fan group just admit that Justin Fields would be the number one overall pick in this, or number two because the Jags have the number one pick? It's just crazy when you're seeing this quarterback talent and you're seeing them at the scouting combine. They're nowhere near from a prospect perspective. You might think that he sucks now, which it's way too early to say that Justin Fields is bad, but from a prospect perspective, none of these guys are even close to Justin Fields. And let's just get that out of the way before we get into the risers and fallers from that day one. Because really, Malik Willis out of Liberty, he showed some flashes. Then you have Kenny Pickett with his tiny 8.5-inch hands that honestly, it's a concern if you are analyzing quarterbacks. And also seeing Sam Howell out of North Carolina, he's not a good quarterback. He really struggled today, and it just made me feel better. So Bears fans, hold your chest up higher because there was not a lot of good quarterback play out there. And for all the other people looking for a quarterback, you might be like, I really hope Malik Willis is the guy, but there wasn't a lot of great production. But there was a lot of production at the wide receiver position. So, day one, let's go through just three risers. This was really hard for me to go through because there was so much speed at this wide receiver position. So, I had to find three that I think are going up draft boards. And I'm got to start out with Chris Olave. Chris Olave, I know us Bears fans, we were hoping that he would drop to us. And we even talked about this on the pod that we kind of hoped that he didn't do so well. But it didn't go that way for some reason. So, for those that weren't watching, when he ran the 40 time, there was like this big glitch in the 40 time trackers. So, when he ran it, they said that he ran like a 4.28 or like something just absolutely absurd. So everyone was like, holy cow, Olave is next level fast. We didn't know this. Eventually, it got corrected and he ended up running about a 4.39, which is still really, really good. But I think just that sudden, oh my God, he's in the 4.2s really is probably going to stick with a lot of owners. And you saw that speed. A lot of concerns about Olave is that he's just the kind of Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley is a good receiver, but he doesn't do anything amazing. He's a good route runner, but he's not like a true number one, you would say. Hence the reason why the Falcons are kind of trying to trade him. But that's really where Olave kind of showed that he can kick it into that next gear and he's a speedster. Also, in a lot of the drills, just was absolutely phenomenal. Just seeing how he's running. The big thing that we were looking for, like we said last pod, is the smoothness and the consistency. Everything that Olave did just seemed easy. And that's what you're looking for out of a player like that. And so to me, he's definitely a round one type of guy. And I think that he moved up on a lot of different boards. And I just don't think he's going to be available to us in the second because he just showed why he is a round one type of receiver, even though that he kind of has that. He might have some still fears that he's a Calvin Ridley, even though that's a really good wide receiver. So, but still, he's moving up a lot of different draft boards. So, who can we actually draft? Now, there's two people that were kind of more late round guys that really, really showed a lot of talent. And number one is Calvin Austin III out of Memphis. Really wasn't a household name. It really wasn't a big name out there. He's only 5'8, 170. But really, seeing him run out there reminds me of a Jakeem Grant. Lots of great start and stop, just ability, very, very fast, very, very quick. 40-yard dash at 4.32, vertical jump 39 inches. Had a lot of other great numbers. He was at the top of majority of the numbers. Just an absolutely incredible athlete. So that's Calvin Austin out of Memphis. Shorter guy that we could potentially get. Yet again, he's a explosive athlete, which this regime is really trying to highlight and push for. So Calvin Austin, remember him, write him down. We'll really be seeing what happens with a lot of these mock drafts later on, because as I'm going through this, he was projected later on. Now, is he a third? Is he a fourth? We just have to see. But the next guy is similar, a big play guy. Now, even though that the tight ends ran that same day, I had to go with three wide receivers because it was just so impressive what these wide receivers did. And I went back and forth for who was the third most impressive, who was the third biggest riser in my mind. And I ended up going with Velus Jones out of Tennessee. I might be saying that first name wrong, but he was someone yet again kind of going later on. And here's this guy kind of comp to Debo Samuel, 6 foot, 204, and ended up running a 4.31 40 time. Just an absolute speedster. There were some times that he seemed a little choppy, but still, you could kind of see that big playability. Now, I feel a lot of people are going to be going back, putting on his tape and saying, what did we miss? Because this guy looked fast, he looked incredible out there, and had decent size too, and he's running that fast. I don't think that we would be getting him in the second or the third. If he does go in that fourth round range, that's just hard for us because we don't have kind of those mid round picks. We have more late and earlier types of picks. But still, those to me are like the three biggest risers. I have a lot of honorable mentions because a lot of you that probably watched it probably saying, what about Christian Watson, the North Dakota State guy? He was another person that I put as someone to watch, and he flew. He was someone that just, you see that next level athleticism out of a Christian Watson. The only reason why I didn't put him out here is because he just validated that he is that next level athlete. So maybe he moves up a little bit, but I don't think that he all of a sudden vaults into the first round. He could, but I just think that he still was kind of that second round guy and just more so validated that. And Sky Moore, the Western Michigan wide receiver, kind of moved up into the second round a little bit rather than being a kind of a value guy in that third round. So those were just two notable honorable mentions at that wide receiver position. But let's actually go to some fallers, because there was one guy that is the biggest faller I feel out of this entire group in day one, and that is David Bell, the wide receiver out of Purdue. Now, that name might sound familiar because a lot of people had him being mocked to the Chicago Bears. And the big reason is that his biggest comp is Allen Robinson. They're around the same exact size. He's actually a little bit shorter than Allen Robinson and kind of still a big, strong type of guy, similar to Allen Robinson. They ran a similar 40 time. He ran a 4.65. Robinson ran a 4.6, I believe, but really a lot of his numbers were equal to Allen Robinson's, except it was all worse. And even seeing him in a lot of the drills, he just didn't look explosive. The biggest question mark about David Bell is, does he have a second gear? When you see him run, he just goes. He goes at the same speed, and there's no second gear. Now, why is that important? If you've ever seen a game when the ball is in the air, Darnell Mooney does a very good job at this, and a lot of other wide receivers do very good jobs at this. That's why it's a normal trait for most wide receivers. When the ball's in the air, all of a sudden it just seems like they hit another gear and they have this sudden burst of speed, catch the ball, and then kind of revert back to their normal speed. Bell just did not show that. And especially when you have all these amazing athletes, and Bell really fails at that. And I believe also he had the worst 20 yards shuttle. Just showed he's not a great athlete. And he just validated that even more. And he actually showed that he's even a worse athlete than we previously thought. So to me, David Bell is one of those guys that I could see him dropping to the third. I could see maybe even, it might be a hot take, but he could potentially even drop further because of those numbers. There's a lot of concerns with that. Yes, he's a contested catch guy, but think about like a Laquan Treadwell, who tested a lot better, or actually, I think about the same. When you see somebody always making contested catches, is it because they're really good at jump balls, or is it because they're not creating separation? That was the big question. He didn't create a lot of separation, and he didn't show those athletic tests. David Bell out of Purdue, big faller at that wide receiver position. Now, the other fallers that I had, this is very debatable. Traylon Burks, this tall, big, athletic wide receiver out of Arkansas, I thought he did well. But some people, I'm looking at some of the storylines, some people were saying, well, we just didn't like the way that he performed. You have this bigger 6'2, 225 guy that was running out there without the next level speed. He ran a 4.55. That's fast enough. So some people, though, did not like it because they're comparing him to Olave and a whole bunch of other wide receivers. So to me, Traylon Burks, if he drops, he is someone to at least look for. I couldn't imagine him getting out of the first round, but supposedly some people are not liking what they saw, which I'm fine with because he is a very talented wide receiver out of Arkansas. Now, the last guy, I just wanted to throw him out there. Yet same similar thing. I didn't think that he was doing that bad, but Garrett Wilson, he was the guy that the other Ohio State wide receiver, everyone really had him as either the number one or number two wide receiver. Now you see Chris Olave that seemed to dominate. I'm curious if that just kind of notches Olave up and Wilson down. Wilson did not have a bad day. He didn't have a bad day. It just Olave looked better. He just was smoother, cleaner, faster, and I could see this being like a twin brother type of thing. They're seeing these two guys out of Ohio State, and one has to be better than the other. So I could see Olave jumping Wilson in some draft boards because of just how awesome he looked. So that does it for the first day. A lot of great talent. The only other people that I just want to have note of, since I didn't talk about any tight ends, Trey McBride and Greg DeLuch. So Trey McBride is out of Colorado State. He looked phenomenal. And also Greg Dulcich I'm saying that wrong, out of UCLA. He was another just really good tight end talent that you're seeing in the third round. Maybe we want to get another tight end besides Komet, but I don't know if we would actually be going after that. And Jelani Woods out of Virginia just validated that he is a Mo Alley Cox replacement, just exactly like Mo Alley Cox. So that's why we might even be looking at him as well. So that does it for day one. We will be going through day two and day three next, right after a word from our sponsors. Have you ever wanted to start your own YouTube channel, podcast, or Twitch stream? Well, use the most trusted brand in the business, and that is Shure microphones. I use Shure in-ears and a Shure MV7 to record all of my podcasts, and honestly, I couldn't be happier. I'm able to plug it straight into my computer, so I don't have to use big mixing boards or anything crazy complex like that. So, get the brand that most professionals trust, and that is Shure. Use the description below and tell them Unbearable Sports sent you. And we are back to go through day number two of the scouting combine. Now, this was the big running game. This was the offensive linemen and the running backs. So, as we know, we don't need a lot of running backs. So, I didn't look at that as much. It was all about the offensive line. Now, the three biggest risers, in my opinion, just like how we really, really wanted Chris Olave, Zion Johnson out of Boston College. He was an interior lineman, so he's played center, he's played guard, and that guy is just a freak of nature. When you're seeing him out there, that you they've we've talked about this a little bit, how like in the zone blocking scheme, we're looking to get speed, we're looking to get quick. Now with Zion Johnson, you saw that he is just built. He has good weight on him. You could see that he's just like more muscle than fat, like some of these other offensive linemen out there. Just amazing burst, amazing speed, and just took my breath away when I'm watching him. And we know that he can play the interior of the line. We know he can play center. We know he can play anywhere. So just seeing him rocket up draft boards, it just kind of stinks. Like hopefully he drops. Hopefully we can still get him because he is an interior lineman. So you don't know how much priority people are putting, how much stock they're putting into that position. But Zion Johnson just looked absolutely fluid out there, did 32 reps of 225, and really like some of his numbers didn't look amazing when you actually look at the combine, but when you see him against other people, like one after another, he's just a next level type of an athlete that you want to have on this line. He's got that quick burst that we need, and I hope that he stays, but still, Zion Johnson, he's looking amazing and he's moving up. But speaking of, this guy is just vaulting over so many people. You might have seen him before. It's Cam Jurgens, the center out of Nebraska. He ran one of the best 40 times out there at 4.92. Now only benched 25 reps at 225, but still similar to a Zion Johnson. Zion Johnson is next level athlete, but this Cam Jurgens, he is moving up the draft boards because he's got this agility yet again that we want to see out of our offensive linemen. He plays with a big amount of explosiveness too, and you really saw that in a lot of the drills. So he's somebody that really wasn't on our radar, but now as we start getting into that maybe third round, if he lasts in the third round, before he was like a fifth, sixth rounder, now you're talking about the third round getting a center like this. So let's say Zion Johnson's out of the picture. If you can pick up a Cam Jurgens in the third, that isn't bad. You're talking about explosive and also quick. And he's also not that light. He's 300 pounds, 6'3". So probably the proper size that we want out there. Plays with a lot of intensity as well. So yet again, even though that Zion looks like he might be a first rounder now we have another replacement that was looking awfully good. I still need to look at his tape a little bit more, but still, just out of the combine, look to be that athlete that we want to have on the team. Now, the next guy is I'm actually going to go with a running back. This running back is moving up. The reason why I have him out here is that we don't need a running back. We have two good running backs on the Bears. So, James Cook out of Georgia, the brother of Dalvin Cook. Now, it'd be awesome to have a Cook brother on the team. But really, he seemed like he was going to be a later round type of guy, but now you just are seeing that next level athleticism. And the best part about him, too, is that he's an all around contributor. He can play on special teams, he can catch, he can receive, he can block. And now he just showed that he's a great athlete. So I just don't see him lasting. You don't want to go after a running back in the second or third when you already have two good running backs. So to me, James Cook just kind of vaulted himself out of the Bears' reach. Before, he could be maybe a late round find that you just get and you're happy with as an extra running back. But unfortunately, that's not the case. But some other winners was just Kellen Deesh out of Arizona State. He's an offensive tackle. He's a very lightweight type of guy, explosive. The only thing that kind of concerned me was he just was a very light build. You would just like to see a little bit more weight on him, but still a very fast tackle. And also, this other guy was a guy that I said to watch out for. Dylan Parham out of Memphis. He's a center. Now, this is someone that just showed this speed that we want to see. Speed and explosiveness. I sound like a broken record, but he showed that explosiveness, that speed. He was someone that in the Senior Bowl, I did not see that out of him. He was getting beat a lot, by power. But hopefully, obviously, this is the underwear Olympics. Nobody's pushing him back, but he just seemed to be a better athlete than a lot of the other people that were out there. Running backs, we don't really have to talk too much about because we're pretty much set. But let's get into the fallers. Now, a couple of the fallers is Kenyon Green out of Texas A&M. Now he wasn't terrible, but the big thing is when you're seeing all these kind of top first round athletes, second round athletes, and you see Kenyon Green, he has a lot of fat. He's got a lot of flab to him, and he just doesn't look like he belongs with the other first rounders when you see them one after another after another. So the reason why he's a faller is he could maybe even fall down to us or maybe even fall to the third cuz looking at him as an athlete, he looked like a third round athlete even though a lot of people had him in that first round. And again, they're not in pads, but still he did not look like the other people out there that were going that high in the draft. So to me, he is a big faller because he didn't look elite. Now, another guy too is Darian Kennard out the interior lineman out of Kentucky. He's one of those guys that was kind of mid-round center that we could potentially get. Some people had him going in the third. And just seeing him here, he's a late round guy. The athleticism is just not there, and he was already kind of struggling with some other practices that I've seen. But really, he just didn't look that good out there. He looked very unathletic. The last guy, it is a running back, Isaiah Spiller. The only reason why I want to bring him up, he is out of Texas A&M, and he was kind of seen as the second or third best running back in a lot of people's eyes. Just did not have a good week, did not run the 40, and looked slow out there. A 30-inch vertical jump, which is not good from a lot of running back perspectives, just didn't lack that explosiveness, lack that speed at that running back position, while a lot of other people were showing a lot of speed. Now, that's about day two. A lot of linemen, but like we were saying, Jurgens, Zion Johnson, there was a lot of speed out there, and James Cook probably not going to be in range for us anymore. But we still have 2 more days left. Now, day three. Day three was on Saturday, and day three was honestly the most entertaining NFL combine, or one of the top ones. And the best way to just sum it up was the day of Georgia. You probably saw all the headlines already about just how amazing Georgia was. And there's already a couple good Georgia players on day one and day two, but day three, that defense, wow. Just absolutely wow. And they didn't even have like one of their best players in N'Kobe Dean, their inside linebacker, even perform. Now on day three, the people that we saw were the D linemen and the linebackers. So we saw some interior defensive players, some edges, and some linebackers. So we'll kind of break it down that way, but this was hard to find 3 risers and 3 fallers. This was really difficult because there were so many risers. So I kind of cheated a little bit and combined 2 of them together. I didn't feel like I needed to talk about these guys, but just in case if you missed it, Devontae Wyatt and Jordan Davis put on a show. Jordan Davis is an interior line. Both of them are interior linemen from Georgia, but Jordan Davis is 341 pounds. Now, this is what's crazy. Now, we talked about this the pre-show, saying that Jordan Davis is an incredible athlete, that he was going to light it up. And what do you know? He did. So it wasn't that surprising, except eventually, when you saw the numbers, it was just outrageous. He was one of the fastest interior guys out there and ran a 4.78 40 time, the fastest time ever posted by somebody that was over 340 pounds. Just an absolute incredible freak of nature with an incredible 10-yard split. And what was crazy is a lot of people had him going in the second, or some people had him in the second and just didn't know where to put him because of his kind of lack of stamina. Now, when you have this incredible athlete, I think about it like Mekhi Becton. Not a lot of people liked Mekhi Becton because of his feet, and then all of a sudden, he goes crazy, and now he vaults up to the number one guy out there. So I think Jordan Davis, kind of after that performance, just rose up to top 16, maybe top 10. We'll have to see what ends up happening, but yeah, goodbye anytime with the Bears. But the only other guy is just like that Devontae Wyatt, that interior player. I don't know if he would ever drop. I can't see him dropping to the Bears, but in a lot of mock drafts, sometimes he was, because let's be real here. Interior defensive lineman, it's not a sexy position. Not a lot of people want that. Some people actually support an interior guard more than an interior defensive lineman. Why? Because you'd rather protect your quarterback than that big guy in the middle that's just kind of stuffing the run. It's not a very sexy position, even though that you have Aaron Donald and other top level players. But I think Devontae Wyatt just vaulted himself in that conversation and probably shifted himself away from the Chicago Bears. But he is someone to be on the lookout for. He was incredible, ran a 4.77 at 304 pounds. So yet again, amazing 10-yard split. Just shows the explosiveness out there. And yeah, I don't think that he's going to be in the Bears range, but just wanted to kind of call him out and just give him some love for his amazing performance. Now, there are two other players that I do have on my risers because I cheated and just went Georgia defensive interior guys. This guy has fallen in the shadows for these interior defensive linemen, and that's Travis Jones out of Connecticut. Now, this is a guy that when I was talking about him for the Senior Bowl, he was someone that was really kind of a nose tackle. He did very well in the Senior Bowl, but it looks like he actually shed a lot of his weight because he just seemed very big and just was a nose tackle, and that was it. So he wasn't going to fit in our defensive scheme. He seemed to shed a lot of weight. He's 325 pounds at 6'4" and ran a 4.92 40 time. So yet again, an amazing 40 time, showed amazing speed, and even in his lateral drills, you just saw the sideline to sideline production that when I was seeing in the Senior Bowl, maybe they just had him out there longer. He really wasn't running sideline to sideline. It could be an effort thing, but really, he just showed that he is a next level athlete. He shed some pounds, and I think that he's going to be rising up draft boards, and even more so than he was before, showing that he's not just a nose tackle, that he can play other positions on that interior of the line or try him out at those different interior positions on the defensive line. That's Travis Jones, defensive interior player out of Connecticut. Still a run stuffer, but showed that really amazing speed and quickness for a guy his size. Now, I've gone through just defensive interior guys, but day three had linebackers. Now, one linebacker that really stood out was Channing Tindall out of Georgia. He is somebody that has just been kind of going up draft boards like crazy. He has been just the backup linebacker from Georgia that has all this amazing frame, 6'2", 230, but he just keeps showing up. Whether it was the Senior Bowl or the combine, he's just showing out and showing that, yes, I wasn't a starter, but that's just because Georgia had amazing linebackers. That's why I got some production. I was just kind of the versatile piece. He went in and had a 4.47 40 time at linebacker and also jumped 42 inches in the vertical. So just absolutely explosive. And you saw that too. You saw him moving sideline to sideline, and he just looked like that next level linebacker. Just absolute amazing workouts by Channing Tindall. And it's going to be interesting to see where he goes because Nakobe Dean and the other Georgia linebackers are kind of in that later first round, early second type of range. So does the backup go in the third? Because he could. He's been showing that, hey, like I said, he's showing that, hey, even though I was a backup, I'm still a good player. I'm still worthy of a upper echelon type of a pick. So I think he's just been moving. I was seeing some other rankings. Before he started, he was ranked like the 300th best player. Now he's going to be a top 100 player, I think, after this combine performance. So with the risers, there was just so many. So those were the three that I picked, but I do just want to call out a couple other. Perion Winfrey, an interior defensive lineman out of Oklahoma. He's someone that we really liked out of the Senior Bowl. He just showed that yet again, he had one of the top 40 times, great 10-yard split, showed off a lot of that explosiveness. And Thomas Booker is a interior defensive lineman, I believe out of Stanford. I don't have it up in front of me right now, but he is, yes, out of Stanford. He had a top 540 time at this interior spot, and he's someone that you can get later on. Just someone to be on the lookout for is that Thomas Booker. Now, other guys too that I just want to call out again. These are, like I said, lots of honorable mentions. Chad Muma was someone we were watching. He performed well. He showed that he was that good interior linebacker. And Troy Anderson out of Montana State was somebody that just kind of shocked people with an absolutely amazing 40 time. He's out of Montana State, interior linebacker. So a lot of people are saying that maybe he's just a great special teamer, but he is someone that just warrants a couple extra looks because while we were watching it, I think that Daniel Jeremiah said he should be a day one starter. So Troy Anderson, Montana State, someone to at least be looking out for as maybe somebody later on with a 6th-round draft pick that we potentially pick up. But we have to go to the fallers. We have to go to some people that were just kind of falling down some of these draft boards. And I hate saying this, but my boy, if you've listened to the podcast before, I like this guy. I like what he's put out on tape. So I was all excited that this guy is going to dominate and he's going to show out and put up some big numbers. Now he did have a bad day. He wasn't bad. He just was okay. And that's Brian Asamoah, the interior linebacker out of Oklahoma. When I watched the tape, he just seemed faster, just seemed quicker than all the other linebackers out there. So he posted a 4.56 40 time. Like I said, the 40 times aren't everything, but still, when you saw him compared to the other linebackers, he didn't wow me as much as he does on tape. So it was just a little bit interesting. Did he tack on some weight? Is he not in the same playing shape? Because I didn't see the explosiveness that I'm used to seeing, like I watched at Oklahoma. Now, one other thing too that just kind of like took me off guard was that he measured in at 6 feet tall. Before that, his measurables, he was listed at like 6'2". So how did he shrink 2 inches? It's that Oklahoma that if you're in high school sports, sometimes they just tack on 2 inches and you're taller and heavier than you ever thought. So, but yeah, they tacked him on and said that he's 6 feet. So a lot smaller than expected. He used to be like 6'2", 230, and now he's 6 foot 226. So a little bit smaller and a little bit slower. So just something that I didn't like to see. Now I think that his big calling card was his athleticism. He wasn't smart. He wasn't kind of praised for his smartness. It was the athleticism. So I think he's going to be moving down a lot of different draft boards because he didn't show out. Now, the other two people, Fedarian Mathis out of Alabama, I just wasn't a big fan. He was an interior defensive lineman, just stood up very upright. He's someone that should be going in the mid-second, and after seeing him stand very upright, it just wasn't good form seeing somebody run around. That's a big calling card. You want to see good form. He didn't have good form. So because of that, I could see him just dropping, and he just didn't look like he was a second round type of talent compared to everyone else. Maybe a physical specimen, yes, but just overall movement skills wasn't really there for me. Now, the other faller this is yet again faller by default. DeMarvin Leal, interior defensive lineman out of Texas A&M, he had a good combine. Honestly, he had a good combine. He had a 5-second 40-yard dash, which is a very good thing for a 283-pound defensive lineman. Now, it's not amazing, but it's good. It's just when you have these other freaks of nature running at defensive linemen, you're going to see a player like this kind of fall down some draft boards. Now, he is someone that we should be looking at, DeMarvin Leal, and he is a good interior lineman that, like I said, now people are going to be going after Devontae Wyatt, Jordan Davis. So does that cause an interior defensive lineman like Leal to then be falling to the Chicago Bears? We know we have a lot of trouble at the interior defensive lineman spot if we don't have Akeem Hicks or Bilal Nichols or Eddie Goldman next year. So he could be somebody that we potentially that falls to us at that spot. So just somebody to be on the lookout for. The only other loser that I'm just going to call out, and I hate saying loser or faller, is Haskell Garrett out of Ohio State. I was just expecting a little bit more athleticism, and so I personally was a little bit disappointed. But then I also haven't even touched on any of the edge rushers just because the Bears don't really need one. But just in case if anyone's curious, Trayvon Walker out of Georgia, edge rusher, performed amazingly. Great speed, great burst, great everything. So moving up draft boards. Boye Mafe out of Minnesota has been just blowing up draft boards as well. Just a very talented edge rusher out of Minnesota. Now, some of the losers at the edges, Myjay Sanders out of Cincinnati. This is just a concerning thing. I really hope nothing's wrong with him and he just got bad advice. The guy showed up at 220, just the lightest edge they've said that they've ever, lightest defensive lineman that they've ever measured. And it showed. He wasn't that fast. He just wasn't explosive. So I actually hope he's okay because it looked a little scary, just the amount of weight that that guy lost. So he could be somebody that's also falling. We just don't really need an edge rusher. That's big reason why he wasn't top of the fallers on my list. So that about does it for the first 3 days. Now we have our last day. Defensive backs. You know that we are struggling at the defensive back position, so we have a lot of stuff to go through next after this ad. Summer is just around the corner, and you know what that means. It's going to be swimsuit season. Help get in the best shape of your life with Transparent Lab's suite of performance nutrition products. Whether you want to get buff, whether you want to get lean, whatever it might be, they have a product for you. And like the name entails, it's all transparent, so you actually know what you're putting into your body, which is a very good thing. Use the description below to link out to Transparent Labs and tell them that Unbearable Sports sent you. And we are back to go through the final day of the draft combine. Now, this was all defensive backs, so corners and safeties. And let me just say, I like that they've actually been starting to kind of split everybody up. I hope next year they actually call it like it is, and rather than just say defensive backs, say corners, say safeties, because then it's easier for people to just know what they are rather than defensive backs 1 through 30 and 30 through 60. And defensive linemen, too, they also split it up a little bit better. So thank God that they did. So the next thing that I want to go through is just the winners of the defensive backs. So some of the best risers. This was a guy that I said to look out for, that he is somebody that you need, that the Bears hopefully could get. But unfortunately, the guy just dominated. Now, we don't know where these corners are going to go, but this guy just showed out, and that's Trent McDuffie out of Washington. He just looked so fluid, so smooth with everything that he was doing out there. Just anytime that you were watching him, he just didn't make mistakes. And that's what you want to see out here. You don't just want to see, oh, that person had a good rep. You want to see consistency. And really, Trent McDuffie was so consistent. Ran a 4.44 40-yard dash, so he showed off the speed. And the biggest thing, too, is I think that he kind of separated himself from a lot of the other corner prospects as well, because he just looked that smooth. Now, I don't think he's going to be the first corner off the board, but I do think that he did separate himself from like a Roger McCreary. Roger McCreary from out of Auburn, a corner, still did very well. Like he did very, very well. It's just that that McDuffie just showed that he's better. He just showed more consistency out of there as an athlete. So to me, he was a big riser because he just showed he's top dog. He's top dog out of those two because a lot of times they were 1 or 25 and 26, but he's just moving up. If he drops, if he drops, it would be an amazing gift for the Chicago Bears. So we just got to cross our fingers because maybe he's not a right scheme fit for somebody and ends up falling. Now, the other guy that I want to bring up is Jalen Petrie, the safety out of Baylor, safety slash slot corner. Now, this is yet again another guy that I'd love to see because he could be somebody that realistically is in that second round. I could see maybe somebody just taking a flyer and saying, listen, I got to take him mid first. But honestly, I think he just solidified that spot. He was just amazing and just absolutely incredible. Yet again, very, very consistent. He didn't run. He didn't do a lot of the different like tests, but he just looked amazing. He also looked like he also bulked up a little bit more from the Senior Bowl. Just looked very big compared to the other safeties, but still was able to handle that weight in a very smooth way. So moved fluid, moved with great burst, and just incredible. I can't talk more about Jalen Petrie because he was great. A lot of comps to Antoine Winfield Jr., and he was really kind of showing out with that. So somebody that can play safety or slot. So hopefully he's there for us in that early second because yet again, 32 people have to go, and there's a lot of people that just showed that they were great. So he's somebody to definitely keep on your radar and hope he drops to us. Now, the next guy I just want to bring up because I really liked this guy today. And he's somebody that was far late round pick and might be shooting up boards, but I don't know exactly what other people thought of him, but I love this guy. It was Demarion Williams, the corner out of Houston. I actually didn't watch his tape before this, and he just looked incredible. Every rep that I saw, he had great speed, great explosiveness, yet again, very fluid, and he has great length, great size. So to me, I gotta watch more tape. I don't have a lot of good notes on him because I haven't watched him. I haven't watched him, but he could be somebody that is down there in the fifth, sixth types of rounds, and you pick up this guy, Demarion Houston out of Houston, Demarion Williams out of Houston. He was a very very impressive corner today, and just kind of curious. How does he look like in pads? But a guy that I really liked. Some other guys too. Uh, just the consolation prizes, because yet again, there was a lot of really good play from these corners and safeties. Cam Taylor Britt out of Nebraska. He's someone that can go in the second, third round. A corner, absolutely phenomenal. Yet again, very fluid with everything that he was doing out there. Another guy too, Darian Kendrick out of Georgia, another player that just looked flawless. Georgia as a whole was just incredible. If we draft a Georgia player, I'd just be happy because a defensive Georgia player because every single Georgia player out there looked great and just smooth, amazing. I don't know what they're putting in the water down there, but these guys are just incredible. Absolutely incredible. So just look for anybody from Georgia and just assume it's a good pick if they get drafted. But the other safeties that I just want to call out as honorable mentions, we have Marquise Bell from Florida A&M, somebody that we said to definitely look out for. He had a very good combine. He didn't show amazing explosiveness, but he's one of those guys that you just don't know where he's going. Small school, so he could be going in the fifth, could be going in the sixth. I saw some boards had him as a 200 type of range type of player, but then others have him in the second and third. So it's interesting to just see where he goes, but I think he just showed I have great size. I have great ball skills. He was able to just high point the ball absolutely incredibly. So Marquise Bell might be somebody, all of a sudden you see him go in the third. A very good safety. How badly do we need a safety? And who do we end up picking in free agency? Because there's a lot of these good safeties, Petrie, Bell, that we can get in that second, third round that are pretty good. But the other guy, too, that I just want to call out, late round guy, Nick Cross out of Maryland, safety. Looked very good, very fluid, also ran very fast, too. Let me see if I can actually pull up the stats real quick on him. He actually had the fastest 40 time. I didn't realize that it was that fast. He ran a 4.3440, so just absolutely incredible at 212 pounds. And yet again, in the drills, was able to, had great ball skills, was able to demonstrate that, looked very fluid in the hips, just very good performance. But we got to end this with some of the losers, some of the fallers of the day. And this is a sad day because Smoke Monday, the safety out of Auburn, I swear to God, Smoke Monday to me was a faller. It's hard. He's got such a cool name, so I want him to do well. And I felt weird even putting him out there because he's got such a cool name, Smoke Monday. But really, he was a 4.52 40 time is not terrible, but he just looked a little bit slow out there because he's about 200 pounds. So you wanted to see him a little bit faster, and just all around, when I was just watching the drills, he looked like one of the worst safeties out there from an athletic perspective. It stunk. It stunk. But Smoke Monday, uh, you know, maybe he's an undrafted free agent, or maybe he gets drafted because of the name. But to me, he looked kind of undraftable out there. So Smoke Monday, up in smoke, is no longer going to be out there. But some other guys that I saw falling. This is just my own personal take. Kaiir Elam out of Florida, the safety. I just wasn't very impressed. He's somebody that a lot of people like in the third round. And to me, he just didn't show that third round capability from an athletic perspective. He's a little bit bigger, but just wasn't overall impressed with him and the day that he had. Now, the other faller, this is probably a hot take a little bit. I didn't know who to do because there's a lot of really good players out there. From the defensive back group. I was debating on putting Derek Stingley Jr., who's the corner out of LSU. He just didn't participate because a lot of people have him as a top guy, but he didn't participate. So he's being lapped by Sauce out of Cincinnati. But the guy that I have is Alontae Taylor out of Tennessee. The reason why I threw him up here is because Bears fans might see him going to us in the third round. He had a really good 40 time. I know he was under 4.4, but still, I just didn't like what I saw out of the drills. He looked very crazy. He just didn't seem controlled. What I'm looking for is just somebody that is level-headed, that, yes, I'm just running a drill. I'm just running this easily. Yeah, it's that fine line between somebody trying hard enough in the drill, but not going too crazy where they're just all over the place. And that's what I saw out of Alontae Taylor. Yet again, this is just my personal take on it. I'm not looking purely at his numbers. I'm just looking at the drills, and he just looked a little bit reckless out there, and somebody that I wouldn't really want to, like, for a third round guy to be that reckless in the drills just did not impress me much, but still has good amounts of tape, but he could be someone that is just a faller out there. So that's the scouting combine. That is 4 days. So for those draft heads that are listening, or people that stuck around for the entire episode just to listen to this, thank you so much. Make sure to make sure to follow us at Unbearable Sports. If you're listening to us on YouTube, leave a comment down below of who you think I might have missed. Who impressed you? Whether if you are a Bears fan and who do you think the Bears should get. But really, I wanted to take an angle rather than just the basics of who was awesome. I wanted to really kind of zero in on the Bears prospects. Who would the Bears actually want to get, and who's still kind of on the board, or who rose off the board. So make sure to subscribe. We have a lot of extra content coming out to you. Just look for Unbearable Sports. And thank you guys so much. And Unbearable Sports Podcast, we're out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair, and you know that she's a bad chick.
Thank you for listening to this Belly Up Sports Podcast Network product. Some said we go belly up, so we made it our name, and we're still here.